The leather in seat 12F probably cost more than 3 months of Marcus Thompson's rent. He knew, because he'd actually calculated it while buckling his 6-year-old son Isaiah into the wide business class seat. A veteran's courtesy upgrade had placed them here, in a space neither of them looked like they belonged in. Isaiah clutched a battered F-22 toy, paint chipped from countless imaginary dogfights. Marcus wore his oldest work jacket, oil stains ghosting across the sleeves, no matter how many washes he put it through. Victoria Sterling's perfume arrived before she did. She slid into the seat beside Marcus with a dramatic, put-upon sigh that said more than anything her glossed lips ever could. "They really should have separate sections," she murmured into her phone, loudly enough to be heard, letting her eyes drift briefly over Marcus' calloused hands as though they were contagious. The flight attendant's smile dimmed a fraction when she offered Marcus a warm towel. A tiny fracture in her professional mask. Marcus felt it all but responded the only way he'd trained himself to: silence, the stares, the whispers, the quiet distance people kept. He absorbed it all the way he always did, until his thumb brushed over the metal band on his wrist, the faded inscription half, hidden by his sleeve, Reaper 6, a call sign that once meant everything, now just a memory worn thin like the fabric of his jacket. But high above them, on a military runway they had yet to see, a truth waited, one that would make everyone in that cabin, especially Victoria, reconsider everything they thought they knew about Worth. Marcus had stopped explaining himself years ago. Let people judge the frayed collar, the discount sneakers, the thrift store toy, let them assume. Isaiah leaned toward the window, pressing his nose to the glass. Marcus remembered when he bought that toy 3 years ago, the same week he sold his flight jacket to pay for Isaiah's preschool uniforms. That jacket had once carried the same call sign, now engraved on his wristband. A wedding gift from his wife, back when the future felt solid. Victoria's voice rose again, slicing through the cabin with corporate sharpness, quarterly projections, incompetent contractors, defense systems her company manufactured. She spoke of pilots as statistics, aircraft as investments, no reverence at all. The flight attendant returned with menus. She handed Victoria hers first, then hesitated at Marcus. "Will you be dining with us today, sir?" The doubt in her tone was unmistakable. Marcus answered calmly, "We'll both have the chicken, thank you." Isaiah shifted sleepily, the same gray eyes as his mother blinking before he drifted off again. Victoria glanced at the toy jet in Isaiah's hand. "Those things are so loud. Once I sat next to a child who made airplane noises for 5 hours straight." She laughed, cold, glass clinking. The businessman across the aisle smiled in agreement. Marcus didn't look at her. He focused on the warmth of his son beside him. Defending himself only ever made things worse. The Boeing 737 engines hummed, a sound that used to thrill Marcus. Now it only reminded him of everything he'd lost. He knew this aircraft intimately. He'd once helped write its emergency procedures as a consultant. That contract had paid 2 months of rent and Isaiah's dental bill before ending abruptly. Then it was back to fixing cars at Precision Auto. The captain announced their flight to Houston. Marcus wondered whether the man had military training or grew up flying Cessnas. Takeoff pressed them into their seats. Isaiah squeezed his father's hand as the ground fell away. Victoria opened a tablet filled with spreadsheets, projects worth more money than Marcus would see in a lifetime. Marcus recognized the type. Base during contractors who posed with jets they would never fly, then complained about the accommodations. The flight attendant returned with drinks. Victoria received sparkling water in a glass. Marcus' coffee came in a disposable cup. Small distinctions that said everything. "Dad," Isaiah whispered, "do you think Mom can see us from up here?" Marcus took a breath to steady the ache in his chest. "I think she can see us from anywhere." Victoria watched them, curiosity, judgment, or something darker flickering in her eyes. She saw his worn clothes and assumed laziness, his silence and assumed emptiness. She didn't see the split-second decisions that once saved lives, or the skill that still lived in his hands even when the world refused to acknowledge it. They leveled off. Isaiah played quietly now, careful loops of his toy plane. Victoria's next call filled the cabin. Military equipment isn't a toy, she snapped, emphasizing the last word with pointed disdain. Isaiah shrank. Marcus clenched his jaw. Then the captain returned, voice tight in a way only another pilot would catch. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be making an unscheduled landing at Fort Stockton Air Force Base due to a technical issue. Nothing to be alarmed about. Passengers groaned. Victoria cursed under her breath. But Marcus heard the truth behind the pilot's calm words. This was serious. Is everything okay? Isaiah whispered. Everything's fine. Marcus assured him. The descent was steeper than normal. Marcus felt the pilot fighting the controls. Hydraulic trouble, maybe asymmetric thrust. The landing was rough but safe. Passengers applauded. Marcus didn't. He was too busy analyzing every sound, every vibration. Fort Stockton Air Force Base came into view. Hangars, radar towers, disciplined movement. A world Marcus once belonged to. One he lost the day doctors said he was unfit for active duty. They disembarked into scorching sun. Victoria claimed a chair near an outlet, immediately making demands of anyone who passed. Marcus sat on the floor with Isaiah, letting his son play. Another glance from strangers. Another quiet judgment. Isaiah eventually drifted to the windows, eyes wide as he watched F-22s being serviced. Dad, are those F-22? Marcus followed his son's gaze. Yeah, Raptors. Aircraft he'd once flown when they were still new. Behind them, Victoria berated a young lieutenant. Do you know who I am? My company supplies half your avionics. Her words cut off abruptly. Because 3 pilots walked in, their flight suits crisp, their movements precise, their presence shifting the atmosphere from civilian to military. The senior pilot, a major, scanned the room. His gaze passed over everyone until it reached Marcus. Then dropped to the steel band on Marcus' wrist. His expression changed instantly. He approached. Excuse me, sir, is that call sign yours, or is it a memorial band? Silence fell across the terminal. Marcus hadn't said his call sign aloud in years, but lying felt like betrayal. It's mine. He finally answered, Reaper 6. The major stood straighter, then snapped into a sharp salute. Sir, it's an honor. The 2 pilots beside him froze, then followed suit. Eyes wide, like they were staring at a legend, Marcus rose slowly, returning the salute, a gesture that felt like slipping into a past life. Victoria stared, speechless. Sir. The major said, voice thick with reverence, I flew my qual mission with Captain Martinez. She talked about you all the time, said you were the best squadron leader she ever served under. Marcus's breath hitched. Captain Alicia Martinez, his wife, the woman whose final, steady radio call still haunted his sleep. She was my wife, Marcus said softly. The major's face fell with understanding. The lieutenant colonel stepped forward. Sir, would you and your son like to come to the flight line? The squadron would be honored. Isaiah's face lit up like sunrise. They were escorted across the hot tarmac. Jet fuel hit Marcus' senses with a nostalgia so sharp it hurt. F-22-775 waited, sleek and powerful. A crew chief, Sergeant Rodriguez, approached Isaiah. You like jets, kid. Isaiah nodded, breathless. Rodriguez leaned in. This jet, she used to be flown by the best pilot I ever met. Reaper 6. That's my dad, Isaiah blurted. Rodriguez's eyes widened, then softened with respect. Sir, during the Syria deployment, you brought this bird home with half a wing missing. I didn't think anyone could do that. The memory slammed into Marcus. Alicia talking him through it, her voice steady. 3 months later, she was gone. Rodriguez signaled her team, "Want to see the cockpit." Isaiah nearly burst from excitement. Marcus helped him climb the ladder. Isaiah disappeared into the cockpit, awe radiating from him. "You flew this?" Isaiah whispered. "Yeah," Marcus answered, settling beside him. "I did." Behind them, Victoria stood alone, small in a place where money meant nothing. The lieutenant colonel approached. "Sir, the squadron would love to meet you." They walked to the ready room together, Marcus navigating by instinct alone. Isaiah fired off questions, and for the first time in years, Marcus answered without shrinking. Inside, conversations halted, heads turned. The colonel addressed the room. "This is Marcus Thompson, call sign Reaper 6. Many of you learned his tactics. All of you benefited from his work." A young lieutenant raised his hand. "Sir, did you really run the Nellies exercise with a 50 to 0 kill ratio, 51? Marcus corrected quietly, "A long time ago. A major stepped forward. Sir, the Reaper role you created saved my life." One by one, every pilot stood at attention. Saluting, Marcus felt the dam in his chest break. The years of shame, guilt, thinking he'd failed because he survived when Alicia didn't. Isaiah squeezed his father's hand, sensing the gravity. "I was just doing my job," Marcus whispered. The major shook his head. "Sir, that's the point. You did it better than anyone, and you kept going. That's not failure. That's courage." Colonel Davis entered, greeted Marcus by rank, not by civilian status. "Captain Thompson, the Air Force didn't just lose your wife that day," he said gently. "It lost you too, but I'm glad you came home today. Your son deserved to see who you are." In that moment, surrounded by the people who understood, who remembered, who honored him, Marcus finally believed it. He hadn't failed. He had survived, and his son finally saw the hero the world had tried so hard to overlook.